So may I take this opportunity to welcome His Excellency, the High Commissioner, to take us through the next session. This is a very open session. Feel free to ask any question. And I think for us is how do we engage with the diaspora here in the UK? So I think the High Commissioner would like to possibly come front.
I think, as James has mentioned, good evening, everyone. What we would like to do is listen to some of your issues, respond to some of the questions you might have, listen to some ideas about how you think we can help you help us in the work we do, and listen to some ideas about how we may help each other in building our country. As you know, we are around 140,000 Kenyans here in the UK. People think that number is higher, but your remittances tell this story. So I think that's where we would like to leave that. We are engaged in promotion of investment into Kenya, but we are also interested in promotion of Kenyan investment into the UK, because investment goes both ways. Mary, obviously, I would have loved to hear what else Equity does in driving investment outside of housing, because there must be many instruments and many avenues for driving investment into Kenya. And I think Equity needs to play the part it needs to play to drive some of that investment. We are interested in leveraging your networks to promote Kenyan products and to market Kenyan products. So for instance, there is a friend of ours who's been chasing for a while who has a contract to supply coffee to some the cafes at Tottenham Football Club on match days. We are interested in galvanizing investment in the Big Four, so affordable housing, in manufacturing, in food security, and in universal healthcare. So there's lots along the value chain that we can do together, we think. And there is a lot we can do in galvanizing support from charities to drive a change among communities. And that's stuff that we are interested in doing together. So we think that the best way to engage is to listen to some of your concerns tonight, and then to deal with these things. Most people think erroneously that our main job in London is to deal with consular issues, to deal with your passports, to deal with your IDs, to deal with things like that. It's part of what we do, a tiny part of what we do. What we want to be judged by is by how much we can help support investment, both ways, is by how much we would like to drive actual growth in our communities, and by how much we support you to grow prosperity. Those are the things that we would like Kenyans here to judge us by. Yes, we must make sure your documents are available and are available in time. Yes, we must support you to sort out consular ideas when you need them sorted out. But that is not our only role. And we want to ensure that you see our role in the broader way in which it is, in order that you make the full benefit of you having a Kenyan mission here in London.
Thank you very much. So it's an open forum, as His Excellency has said, so we'd like to open the floor.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, my name is Josiah Kimani, one of the appropriators for Informer East Africa. a Diaspora newspaper based here in the UK. One of my biggest challenges that I've had with Kenya particularly over many years is the channels of communication are rather rudimentary, because it's always a question of who do you know. And that has caused a lot of ideas that we have come up with here. Indeed, a lot of people who are here have probably proposed a lot of ideas in Kenya, and they have all gone unnoticed, or they have fallen on deaf ears, or the question that is asked is a rather ridiculous question. What is in it for me? And I just want to understand, what are the channels of communication if we were to come up with any ideas, because there's a lot of ideas that are here, but if the channel of communication is not a channel of communication that we are used to, because we're in the diaspora and we're used to systems that work, then we're challenged.
Would you like to answer one or more questions?
I can take two more.
Okay. It's a free forum, so feel free to ask a question if you like to. Yes, please.
Your Excellency, my name is Perez Ochieng, and I've got several concerns based on my experience of importing and exporting in Kenya, to and from Kenya. And also based on the opportunities that we've created as diasporas who has gained immense skills, especially in the areas of innovation and where we want to impart those back to our country. So I've got three concerns that perhaps maybe I just want you to enlighten. One is, I think to add on to what he said, the channel of communication. There was a recent article in Kenya about getting rid of certificate of conformity. And we were actually at the verge of sending a whole container load of food products. And we had to hold it in the warehouse because we didn't know what direction to take. There was a newspaper article by, I think, one of the CS. And the exporters here, Intertech, for example, the company that has responsibility for KEBS, for issuing certificate of conformity, was not aware. So in the process, we missed the deadline for shipping, basically, because the shippers couldn't ship without instructions from Kenya. And of course, I contacted the mission and said this was the issue. So I think the communication, once information has been publicized, whether in the media or a political, how does that filter through to the people who need to use it immediately to avoid losses? So number two, Kenya has been promoted as an agriculture-based economy, and I know we are moving towards innovations and centers of excellence, but we are also looking at the Silicon Valleys of this world. But the truth is we are still agriculture-based economy. 75% of our GDP comes from agriculture. And there's a big push to export Kenya so that we can reduce our balance of trade. But I find it very interesting that there is no system or particular organization responsible for ensuring that all those exports are achieved. For example, we have talked to a lot of manufacturers in the UK here. We are a food manufacturer ourselves. And we are using what we call disruptive manufacturing, i.e. we source our ingredients from anywhere in the world and we can manufacture anywhere. But the biggest challenge we face is integrating the Kenyan natural ingredients into processing. i.e. the biggest challenge we have, and I'm sure you're aware of this, the issue of aflatoxin, for example, in most of the food ingredients, which makes it non-conforming for EU requirements. The technology available for moving those goods. You know, we are now talking about blockchain, Internet of Things. Until this is integrated in our logistics, it becomes a complete nightmare to move products from Kenya into here, especially integrating into manufacturing for traceability. So that's my question number two. what is being done and how can it be made easier for us to do business. And finally, the issue of post-harvest handling technologies in Kenya, which is an area that we have worked in for the last 4 years, especially to get sweet potatoes into UK and Europe. And I'm here standing very disappointed that after 4 years of research and development, and bringing all big researchers, universities in the UK to use sweet potato ingredient, I ended up using oats to make my pancake mix because I could not get enough sweet potato flour to produce it. So that is a lost opportunity. This is 50 metric tons of a product I'm talking about. So the issue of warehousing, how are you working with people like Equity, for example? We are talking about housing, but there's a great need for warehousing and post-harvest handling technologies. How can you pass this message to them so they can develop products in this area? I want to leave it at this. I could talk forever.
Thank you, ma'am. I think starting with Josiah, from our point of view, I think if you have anything specific in a specific industry, if you approach our commercial attaché in the first instance, he should be able to give you what we consider the most straightforward connect. We try not to give you individuals. We try to give you systems. We've organized 2 visits here, for instance, one with the PS for Housing, his people from the National Housing Corporation, the people from Standards for Housing. They spent 5 days here. They met various businesses here. They took away some ideas about how they might deal with affordable housing. We see this as the way to deal, because then it is not a question of you are given somebody who hadn't finished their own house and wanted to finish using you, if you know what I mean. That's not our way of doing business. We would give you institutions to deal with, because we can then follow up. And normally we need to know to the very end of that process, if we have introduced you, we want to know how that process has gone. And we will take it to the highest point possible if, in fact, there is anyone asking you anything of any kind in order to deliver. That you can take to the bank. We take this stuff very seriously, and we are quite keen to ensure that the investments you wish to make can see daylight without you having to be open to paying extraneous expenses that have nothing to do with the project. So institutions, we believe in that, and we believe in the government system. We'll take it to the highest level. If you're not getting support, we will ask you pretty much what happened after 3 months. And if things have stalled, you tell us where they have stalled. I know for sure there are two companies involved in one in a merger, and one is in an outright purchase of something in Kenya, and their licenses had stuck for 6 months. They have been unlocked, I think as late as last week, because they didn't have to do anything, and they just came to us, and we spoke to whoever. If there's a guy that you're talking to, then we will try to talk to somebody a pay grade above them to get the job done. That's really our approach. With Ms. Ochieng, with 2 things. One is that there are some problems often with the way policy is communicated, so there is no running away from that. What we are trying to encourage is that people don't see stuff in the newspaper for the first time, that you canvass policy, you discuss it, that industry knows about it before it is announced, and that what we should then try to do is to ensure that the Chamber of Commerce and Industry has constant discussion with yourselves Certainly, if not discussion, there's information sharing. The Association of Manufacturing, there is information sharing, because then that will help you. I am quite sure they know this stuff before it makes the headlines. And clearly making the headlines is not the best way. You want to know that something is happening when your load is already on the road. But if things were stuck, again, if you reached our team or reached myself, we should be able to get that information directly from the cabinet secretary responsible, and to see whether there's anything we can do to help you in terms of your shipment. That's something we are very keen to try to help out, because you shouldn't be making losses when you're investing. The second bit is about the issues we have with aflatoxins and things like that. What we are trying to do is a multi-agency approach. So the people involved in the science are talking to the people involved in trade, are talking to people involved in health, so that one chap seated in one corner of the country is not making a decision that affects the country without talking to other people. And so that people like yourselves who are directly impacted by these things are given a hearing to see what is happening in the areas in which you live. What are the standards, how are those standards changing and stuff like that. At the moment, we are actually talking to the Scottish Africa Business Association, specifically about this thing, because they appear to have been dealing with the science around potatoes for a while. And they will be talking to, I think, some of you, as they are talking to farmers back home about how to improve the situation that you specifically speak about. Warehousing, there is a booming market for that, of course, and I think it is something that we can work with industry to do a little more of. As the people doing flowers and vegetables have shown us, there's warehousing with perfect cold rooms at Jomo Kenyatta International, which is how you get your flowers and your vegetables into Europe every morning. These things can be done. We think that we can work with the private sector to do that. We shall flag it as clearly one of the concerns you have that we need to do something about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, this is the first time we're having an open diaspora forum with His Excellency, and it's very important for us in the diaspora to actually share what a lot of you have been wanting to share. So don't shy off, let us talk and share what we really need to ask. Thank you.
My name is Tujo Tieno. I'm an architect and a construction project manager. So my question will be related mainly to the affordable housing. And the Big Four agenda, specifically the housing, has attracted a lot of attention from Kenya and other investors across the world. And according to our public procurement in Kenya, there is percentage of local investment, or rather percentage of local-owned farms which should go into these public procurement projects. But taking an example of just the Ngara project, which is almost getting finished right now, phase one of it is getting finished, you realize that most of the shareholders of that project, the project was mainly Chinese. The design was Chinese, and then it was being implemented there. The local content, is maybe 30 or 20%, and that is not encouraging partners or businesses owned by Kenyans. And I've also worked in some different projects in Nairobi where when we are going to the bidding process, you find that the Kenyan partners always get the lowest share, yet these companies, this project is in Kenya and it's being financed with the taxpayers. So I feel like these need to change so that the Kenyan partners should have the majority share when it comes to implementation of those type of projects.
Thank you.
Good afternoon all. Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Thank you again for creating this forum. It's very encouraging because this is the only way we can, as Kenyans, be able to participate in nation building. Now, in our Diaspora Policy 2010, Section 3.3.14, Retirement and Benefits Authority, the government through the RBA will establish a diaspora retirement savings scheme, which will provide a structured and secure mechanism upon which diaspora will save and invest opportunities to be found in the country. Further, the channel will mobilize funds through remittance for socio-economic development. Now, there's a reason why I pick on that particular point. As a diaspora myself, and someone wishing to set up retirement facilities in Kenya, looking for partners, I still am curious whether this has still, or is there an implementation stage for this particular item? Thank you.
Do you want to take another one?
Yeah, one more.
Yeah, my name is Martin Korea. I'm in civil engineering consultancy. And I've got three quick questions. The first one is the entry requirements for Kenyan professionals. What I found is even if you're practicing in this country at the highest level, it's very, very difficult to get to practice in Kenya. A few years ago, I tried to introduce some technology for water storage and harvesting. And although in this country, I'm chartered, I practice at the highest level, I found that in Kenya, I couldn't be registered as an engineer. But if someone went from here with a British passport, they can register as a temporary civil engineer, an opportunity that's not available for us. The second question is, a few years ago, His Excellency, the President, came here and encouraged a lot of us to invest in Kenya. Some of us went there, did a few things, but the problem was getting payments. I've got a project that I did about 3 years ago, still chasing the money, it's stuck in the courts, you just never get it. Yeah, the third part is Kenya is borrowing a lot of money from outside. A lot of us here in diaspora, the only investment you can do in Kenya is probably housing. Is there any scope for some innovative products like, let's say, diaspora boards, where you can put some money there which the government can use for development and probably pay interest, almost like what you do with treasury boards? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Tuju? I think the question is the level of participation. And I think there has been a concern, we can't run away from that one, that the segment by local players has been down. There have been questions about capacity and how the question about raising of funding for projects in situations where you need to raise some funding. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that in some instances where government financing is being offered, that maybe the balance needs to be a little more even from your point of view. With the housing, there are hundreds of thousands of homes being built or going to be built. And therefore, I see that there are many opportunities for both Kenyans and foreign companies to be involved. The model for this is both from some government financing as well as from a foreign equity investment. So the model, the president doesn't see this as an area where debt will be a dominant figure. He sees this as an instrument where financing is going to come from the Kenya Remortgage Finance Company, for instance, in terms of the uptake of mortgages. As you know, in Kenya, we only have 40,000 mortgages for a country of 47 million. So that is clearly one space in which you can work, as Mary was suggesting, without the slightest fear of loss, because there are 40,000 mortgages, it's a fact. There are 47 million people, it's a fact. The potential for a mortgage market is up to 5 million in an instant if you get the right houses to match the funding available. The volumes suggest that there is going to be enough on the table for everyone to have, I think. For other big projects, such as roads, for instance, I think the question has to be, we have to look at getting the balance right. So there has to be the mandatory interest by nationals to work with the foreign elements. Obviously, if you look at some of the roads that have been built by locals, and this is the area that is usually highlighted, roads coming off after a year, you building roads and the road being washed away 2 months later because it wasn't properly built. Those are the people letting us down. If people who are given contracts actually deliver the quality that is required, no one is going to give any foreigners loans that are built on the sweat of Kenyans. But I think we have to move away from shortcutting, which a lot of our people do, and just get the job done properly. It's easier to make a smaller profit, secure your reputation, and then get a bigger project and get on with the business. So I'd say that these guarantees that there are in terms of the segments for local input that must be there, I think people are working as hard as possible to try to make sure they are respected. More needs to be done. We definitely can't run away from that one. Martin, I think the question has to be the standards. Yeah. If you have met the standards that any Mzungu has met, there would be no reason why you should be denied your space, because it's a question of standards. If you're a chartered accountant, you're a chartered accountant. You can do a job anywhere. But if anyone ever denied you anything like that, certainly while I am here, please let me know. I will make things happen. Debt is recognized as a big issue. However, debt also provides opportunities. Those people who trade in debt know that. There's always an opportunity there. Secondly, in terms of how we are approaching investment, we are now looking to blend finances, a good mix of debt and equity, so that we don't just roll on the side of continuing to make people uncomfortable about how much debt we are soaking in. I think we are very keen that people invest in projects, which is why Mary is here, for instance, to try to draw in more equity so that our balance is okay. As I said, there are definitely possibilities that your returns are almost immediate, and your returns in Kenya are higher than your returns in London anytime.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, which one? Diaspora bonds.
Because we are all moving to the silver box. And some retirement. So I can see a lot of people in that case.
Even I am grey, so yeah.
But the challenge is that there will be a lot of people retiring, and some of them are not in this room. They actually live in hand-to-mouth. And we don't know if they will be a burden to the society in Kenya when they come back. Can we not create this particular, which is a very well thought policy, to actually create a fund for them to be put in account?
I agree. So there's two things. One is that the time frame set out for implementation are here with us, so to speak. We think that the Ministry of Finance, which is a driver for this, is engaged in a discussion around how the money structures have to be set out, because everyone recognizes that this is going to be a big deal. And it's not just a big deal for you, it's a big deal back at home as well. Because as you know, in the public service, for instance, the number of people that are above the age of 50 are like, Kiiru, what's the percentage? 70%? While the people under the age of 35 are like 30%. So clearly there's a horrible misbalance that needs to be evened out. That's an issue we recognize needs to be dealt with at home, and definitely we will be asking on your behalf, how fast is that particular paragraph cited going to be implemented? So when do we move from talk to action?
Thank you very much. We've actually seen in the USA they're doing very well in terms of organizing their diaspora to be able to do exactly that. So sometimes the challenge comes back to us. We need to be well organized to be able to access such services.
Hi, Nisan Abdulkader. I'm from WAFTech. Thanks for those who organized this and the High Commissioner as well, Your Excellency, for hosting this. As the gentleman had mentioned, it is these kind of forums that actually create sort of changes and policy advice to, of course, those who are in charge and the stakeholders at hand. So I will take a different approach, as I come from a company that helps and advise governments on investment promotion and attraction of FDI. But my question is more regarding the sort of solutions these forums can provide. So asking the High Commission as well as those in this room, what are we doing to showcase these investment opportunities? A lot of the times, the High Commission, as well as the different diaspora organizations, are the gateway to investment opportunities back home. I went on a few of the websites of the diaspora as well as the High Commission, and while they're very flashy and quite visually enticing, there is little or perhaps minuscule information. I think we need to do a better job at ensuring there's more visibility, either by sector or by sort of profession. And that could be sort of a starting work following these kind of diaspora forums. Another suggestion, or perhaps addition to these forums, I'm not sure if you've thought of them as well, is having these forums as a marketplace as well. So how can we expose the products from our country, and how can we showcase some of the investment opportunities? You go to expos all over the world that showcase different products and opportunities in that case. I think we can use the UK as a marketplace as well for that, both for the diaspora and also foreign investors. And then perhaps just my last point is, what are we doing in that regards? I know that resources are scarce most of the time, but what can we do just based on the High Commission and the resources available to showcase these opportunities more clearly and more in a focused way, you know? And I think one of the questions that everyone had mentioned today, or one of the issues that keeps coming up, is visibility. So what can we do to enhance that, and what's your take on that, perhaps? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mine is probably outside of what has been asked, but the first one is customer service at the Kenyan embassy, which I find that even if you make a phone call, some of these things that we deal with daily are things we can make a phone call and deal with them in government offices and not have to travel. But with our embassy, the customer service is quite poor. You could be kept on the line for 20 minutes and still get nowhere. Are we looking into improving these services? Have you considered employing the people already in the diaspora who already understand the need of that speed and not having to bring in the staff from Kenya or wherever else, because we have Kenyan nationalities who can do that, probably that job, and understand the needs of the people where they are. And I find that very humiliating. I went to Sierra Leonean embassy in need of doing business there. But to my surprise, the support that they have for their business people is quite amazing. I had a meeting arranged for me with the Minister for Trade, who is based here, and that was done in a day. If I went to a Kenyan embassy to say that I need to do whatever trade, probably the farthest I'll get that day will be to the receptionist, which is very, very humiliating. Coming to the other side of what Perez just spoke, when we are dealing with things like COCs, that has been the biggest humiliation for probably any Kenyan exporting to Kenya. Chinese products have been showcased and they've had a quick clearance, probably with a lot of junk products. And we find that, I'm sure nobody ships anything from UK when they haven't considered that that product is of value and will get there and serve a purpose. What support are you giving us as Kenyans who are in the diaspora, being our ambassador here?
Thank you very much.
My name is John Kanieru. I'm a businessman. I have two questions. One, I would like to know the role of commercial attache. What is their job description? So that once we understand what they are supposed to do, then we are able to engage. That's number one. Number two, UK is headed to get out of European Union through Brexit. As a country, or rather as a mission, can you inform us as business people, what are the opportunities that Brexit will create? Because UK will start negotiating new business with Kenya and other Commonwealth countries and the world. Have you identified where we can plug in as early as now before we Brexited? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think let's start with the question of greater visibility. So there's two things to that. One, that you need to start from a basic point, which is meet your constituents and figure out what the issues are. To then make a plan to see whether you can market your goods on a wider stage, like say we do with the people here involved in tourism, the world travel market, for instance, at which you are fairly well represented. We have to make available vehicles for information sharing, and our website is fairly new. If you visited it, well, a year ago, and if you visit it now, it's definitely different in terms of the information available to you, as well as the look and feel. So we do realize there's stuff we need to do to make information available, and we're doing it. We are also very demand-driven at this point, because the more questions we are asked, the more information we make available on our sites. Secondly, no, I think that's done, Lisa. The second questions relate to customer service. And again, there's no running away from it. It's work in progress. But again, it's much better now, I would say, from where I was a year ago. There are two things I have to mention. One is that there are hundreds of people calling with consular service questions every day, and they clog phone lines. we are doing something around that. So in a couple of, a couple of weeks, I would say, we'll be in a place where some of that is going to be automated. So AI will kick in and deal with a lot of the consular-related questions. Because the issue here is not we don't have people who know their stuff. Competence is not a question. The simple issue is that you need to go through the deluge of issues related to e-passports, ID cards, and that is like 300 to 400 phone calls a day. So if you are phone call number 176, tell me how long you're going to be on the line. It's not going to be easy. We are breaking that. Some of that has been dealt with with the website, but actual humans also need to respond better, and that is an issue that we clearly understand. You can't be too fatigued to deal with people making genuine inquiries about things. People like yourselves engaged in business, maybe you should just have James's direct line, because then it doesn't get you through the what is that? The reception, whatever. So you don't wait on the line for 2 hours when your question is completely unrelated to most of the people waiting. That is a genuine issue, because all calls at the moment come through the same system. And then after you wait for a half an hour, you discover that actually I can deal with your matter in 45 seconds. And you wonder, what the heck was all that about? Yeah, we definitely can do better. We will do better. We are working around the phone system and the automation so that a lot of the people who clog the lines will get exactly the same response the home office here tells you. You will go to whatever line, take your whatever, answer your questions, and you'll only see a human if you insist, like the next day or something. I have engaged on quite a number of these platforms and I don't get to speak to any humans. I think if your questions are being answered on the consular side, that is where the main issue has been. And that obviously has made life harder for people with investment type issues like yourself, for which we are not ourselves pleased. We would like happier Kenyans investing happy money in a happy place. So we will do a little more to make sure that that happens. The subject of standards, again, Chinese junk being cleared faster than people might wish that to happen. I think it's something that people have been obsessing with for a while. We are trying to look at everything, including added legislation, to ensure that people doing genuine work and exporting or importing quality goods get just as much a chance as everyone. And that I think there was a battle about counterfeits. That appears to have gone slow a little bit. We'll see. We'll talk to people in capital and see how that's going. But the idea should not be that you should not be able to export when you are in a position to. I think you should. I think, again, if there are unsavory issues unrelated to the quality of your goods, let us know so we can take that up with people that can do something about those ones harassing you. The work of a commercial attache. James, why do you exist?
Thank you.
James needs to say what he does. Maybe start on a normal day at 8 a.m.
Thank you so much, High Commissioner. I think the question is very important because one may want to understand what exactly does a commercial attache do. And what I would say is broadly we look at it, the commercial activities, because my department coordinates all economic diplomacy matters between UK and Kenya. And we look at it from the aspect of one, there's a coordination of promotional activities or initiatives between Kenya and the UK. And for that reason, we do facilitate promotion of Kenyan products into the UK market. And within the promotional aspect, we look at different aspects like maybe the issues that you're talking about, standards. So if you're bringing products here and you're experiencing some problems in terms of inspections and traceability issues, those are issues that are brought to our office, and we take up those type of issues with the British government. That's number one, promotion of exports, Kenyan exports, products and services into this market. The other one is promotion of investment. When you talk about the big four and our priority sectors, what we try to do is to promote or to work towards promoting investments into priority sectors of the Kenyan's economy. And the other area we look at is tourism promotion. And within that, there's a lot in terms of trying to share as much information about Kenya in terms of opportunities, in terms of all the relevant information that anybody will be interested in. And as the High Commissioner has said, I think the frustration about maybe trying to reach our office, we are two of us. My colleague is not in today because she had to accompany another delegation to Manchester. But I'm very flexible and I'm very open in terms of giving out my contacts. Thank you.
I think additionally, if you use DM on Twitter, on the mission site, which is at Kenya Mission UK, or at my site, at Esipisu, usually you get responded to fairly quickly. So we're pretty much available. Use, I would suggest, the easiest means. If you've been on the phone for 30 minutes, please cut the line. DM me on Twitter. I am likely to get back to you within 5 minutes. This is proven, it works. I think the other question was the Brexit one. We've been involved for some time now in discussions around what happens post-Brexit. In the first instance, there is the rollover of our current arrangements, which is duty-free, quota-free, and GSP plus. We expect that to continue for a period of 18 months while we negotiate a new deal. But we're just waiting for this Parliament, to reconvene so that they can sign that instrument of extension. It would allow you to continue in the same manner as we are. But the question to ask is, you are the guys that are here. You are watching this economy. You are seeing it evolving. Where are you seeing the gaps? If you identify the gaps, I'll help you get them. You are the ones in the place. I know where the gaps are. I am seeing are because I am reading about possibilities, for instance. So if there are no vegetables arriving in Calais for what, 3 weeks because of the queues are from Calais to Paris, I know that there's going to be additional veggies required from Nairobi. I know that for sure. I know avocados will go up. I know other green products will go up. But you guys are in business. So I would say you should identify these places because you are seeing them. And you should help us help you take advantage of those opportunities. Because if we work together, we will nail the eagle. And if we don't work together, we will half miss, because we are seeing the things we think we see, but you are the market players. You need to make a contribution to that discussion. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Julius Baluto. I'm a broadcaster, also one of the directors for Informa East Africa. Balozi, congratulations and thank you for this opportunity. It's good to engage with Wakenya. So it's a great opportunity. My one will be perhaps different from everybody. I'm talking beyond the diaspora desk. I'm talking about culture, heritage, connecting Kenyans abroad with Kenya on the ground, not on the platform of remittances, but as Kenyans who are equal to the ones on the ground and given equal opportunity. And I'll just give you an example of what's happening right now in this country, talking about heritage. Informa East Africa newspaper, partnering with University of London, Museum of British Colonialism. There's been ongoing extensive research being conducted by students, archivists, professors, all also on the ground in Kenya. And when we talk about heritage, I'll just keep it very simple. If you go to Kapenguria, that's where the Kenyans freedom fighters were detained. But if you go there right now, maybe in the future, if it's not properly preserved, properly kept, in the future we may just go and find a 5-star hotel. Places of historical importance in Kenya are just disappearing. If you go to Central Province, every important place of importance to history of Kenya is disappeared. But we are talking of a group of people who have done that now and gone on the ground in Kenya, done a reconstruction digitally, came up with what we call digital maps. And that will be showcased during our event for the very first time. Why is that important, Balozi? It is important because a country is like a person. And if you just know yourself from halfway up, you have no legs to stand on. Those legs is our country, Kenya, is our history. A lot of history is kept in the National Archives over here. I'm the one who researched for Migingo Island story, the very last time it was done by BBC, to the level of bringing quiet between Kenya and Uganda. And I'm sure you are aware of that. But what was not available in Kenya was available in the National Archives in the UK, from the very original maps when the maps were drawn, answering the question, where did Migingo Island lie? So what I'm trying to say is, number one, speaking beyond the diaspora desk, we get in, over here, diaspora, being told about diaspora desk, but you don't know what the diaspora desk does. When you come to Kenya, we are told about one-stop shop, whereby as an investor, you can go there and everything will be sorted so quickly and fast. But actually, the truth is different. Nobody who knows how a diaspora desk works. No one knows how Kenya government can benefit from skill set from its own citizens. So all I'm asking is, we need to bring the conversation forward as a mission, maybe think about what lies in the UK that belongs to Kenya that needs to go back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbaluto. And I keep saying, because we've done media for so many years with Mr. Mbaluto and other Kenyans who are here, when you're promoting Kenya, you realize that actually the British are very interested to know what Kenya can bring. And I think those are opportunities we are not taking very well. We're not really pushing forward our culture in Britain. And a lot of us and our children will be willing to do that. So any support the mission can give to the Kenyan diaspora to actually promote the Kenyan name in the UK would also be appreciated.
So maybe let me just respond to that, because it's different, unless you're going to talk about culture. Yeah, thank you. One is that obviously we can connect you to the PS for Heritage, because she is actively involved in the work that you mentioned. 3 weeks ago, was it 3 weeks, James? The PS for Culture was here with a team from the National Museums and the National Archives, as well as the President's Office, from the the team that is helping set up the presidential library. They went to the National Archives. They went to the University of Durham. They went to the National Gallery. They visited a number of places that have something to do with the artifacts of the founding presidents of our country. We think that they are heading in the right direction. We think that also it is right that they don't publicize their work at this point, because you need to get a good mass of these things in place before you start making noises about them. As you know how diplomacy works, if you squeak, the project vanishes. You need to get the work done first and then make noise about it. Otherwise, I can assure you no work will get done. So some of that is being done. And yes, there are concerns, many of them legitimate, but I can also guarantee you that we are very awake to these concerns. I don't know if you noticed, but Ichaweri was declared a place of historical value only the other day by Kenya Gazette. So the home of the founding president is on the way to becoming a national monument. That shows you that we're starting to act. The question just should be one of speed. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, asante sana. Just got a quick one, Mr. Balozi. I'm just repeating the same questions that were raised by the two sisters regarding certificate of conformity. My name is Amin Sharif, and I'm from a company called Jumbo Cargo. We do exports and imports. So it's regarding the conformity, and we've been having that issue the last couple of years. So it's just a matter of clearance, and information that we get from KEBS and the guys on the ground over here. So they're quite conflicting on a daily basis. So it depends on whoever we speak to. So even some products, since we deal with quite a huge, we don't deal with one single product. So all products are dealt with separately. So we'd like to get some help and guidance and get them, make it more easy to deal with. And secondly, importation. You just mentioned the fruits and veg. We've had some guys in Kenya and companies all over in Nairobi trying to do exportation from Nairobi. So it'll be quite helpful to have some guidance from the embassy to have on the website or something like that to help them out on importations or exportations from Kenya, basically. So those are my questions, Asante sana.
Actually, adding on to that, because for the last 4 years, I think, when Perez was trying to bring stuff to Spitalfield Market, not once or twice did her product get, thrown away because of just 1 day difference. So I think it's important for that. There's a lot of people really struggling to import from Kenya, to export from Kenya to the UK. So maybe that is something you need to look into.
Yeah, and it's our commitment to help you as much as we can. The KEBS staff, I think the first one is about information sharing. So all additional information that you have asked, we will try to get on the site within 48 hours. On the various issues that you have had with the certificate of conformity, maybe we could put the three of you together so that James takes a proper note and we get back to you within a few days. Because that will allow us to deal both with KEBS as well as the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Balozi, for this opportunity, and I think it's quite helpful. My name is Eric Mwangi. I'm a data scientist. I run a firm called Blockchain Global. We provide digitization in the informal market. So we have been successful in Asia and Zambia, but for some reason, it's just next to impossible to get into Kenya. I don't know why. So the gentleman here said we can call him, and I think that is nice, but I don't think it's sustainable. I think a body would be helpful, or a mechanism for some of us who are looking to add value locally. And how do you go about it? Because it's frustrating. I got a call from Ugandan Manufacturing Association last week. I can't get into Kenya, and I'm Kenyan. It's as they say, you know, I like this phrase, kwa ground vitu ni different.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is John Kiiru, and for me it's not more of a question, it's just a suggestion, because I think one of the root cause of this is we do this not in a calendar way, so where there is a meeting like this which everybody is prepared for and aware of. That's why maybe some of these problems keep on piling without having a proper root cause. So for me, my suggestion was simple, in that if we can do such a forum where, say, there's a few people in export, and then they have like an export business forum where it's linked to the commission. So that way, then the information flows throughout the year, rather than just in instances that we hit a brick wall and then we do that. And for me, it was shocking as well, pleasantly, that I've been working 23, 24 years in this country in construction. I've just had these people in construction here as well. And we don't know each other what we do. So as much as you are here helping, we're not helping ourselves because we don't have those forums which might be linked back to the commission, where we can link up the construction fraternity, the health fraternity, so that at least there is that dual dialogue that carries on throughout the year, rather than just on simple occasions like these, where we come and overwhelm you with so many questions, rather than the vehicle being an ongoing thing throughout the year. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary. First of all, I would like to thank His Honorable Excellency for the promise of creating systems that hopefully will work. I'm going to talk about a very sensitive subject, land and land ownership and land development in Kenya. Accountability, regulation. Our land registry system is something that leaves a lot to be desired. I'm a victim of a plot of land that is, as we speak at the moment, is exchanged hands unofficially 5 times. On 2 of those title deeds officially issued by the land registry have been declared dead. And I'm having to prove my existence as I speak to you now to say that I'm the rightful owner of that land. My question is, in your promise to create systems, will you also be looking to create some kind of level of accountability and regulation on this particular big area that every Kenyan citizen has a right to and should be protected when they access it? Thank you.
Okay. Let's start with a very sensitive one. 2 weeks ago, I was at Oxford Uni at a forum on how to improve the court system in Commonwealth Africa. Some of the people there were Kenya's DPP and his deputy, as well as a judge of the Supreme Court. And one of the things that they thought they needed to work on as a matter of urgency was the time for access to justice, which is a major bottleneck. And I remember that one of the cases that was discussed there involved a land case that a family had been executing for 40 years. To the extent that if you look at the files, you know, a paper file that is 40 years can be quite something. They agree, and we are hoping that some of the actions that they envisage would help unclog the court system, because that's one area where, well, faster reform needs to happen in order that commercial considerations are not hurt by the time it takes in litigation. The second bit is the state of the registry. As you know, that's been a source of concern for a while, which is why it is possible to declare you dead while you are alive. It is one thing that I think, if you look at our ease of doing business as compiled by the World Bank, we've made moves in the last 5 years from 136 to 56 this year. However, the thing dragging us back is land. And so we recognize that there has to be a rapid reform around the land question, and especially in dealing with the registries and in dealing with the geo-mapping. It is an imperative, if our housing program is going to work, that people know, like you know here, exactly where your house is or where your flat is. Because you know those things don't exist yet in our place. And if then it's identified in that way, nobody can show up and say, but my flat was in the corner between the other corner and this corner. So no one actually knows that it's an actual space. Everyone is talking about a corner. And because money is changing hands in a way that is not legal, this nonsense is allowed to happen. I think there's greater commitment now than at any other time in our country to deal with these matters, which is why you are seeing where people have been accused of wrongdoing, the profile doesn't matter anymore. People are being held before courts. And we do hope that this process can continue to deepen, so that it's not just those affected, but you should not be in a position where you think that this will happen to me, because really the land is yours. It needs to be protected by law. It ought to be protected by law. On the blockchain question, and these wonderful calls you're getting from Uganda and none from Nairobi, I think, again, maybe you signposted correctly. It's a question of systems. You ought to know what's coming up when. And so one is just a question of whether you are following our IT related contracts quite closely. And the one thing we can do is put you in touch with the Office of the PS for ICT, because that's their location. That way, at least, you will, as a starting point, have information about what is happening. And I think, secondly, maybe we ought to have a chat, because sometimes you need to show more of your track record. And in a country where Kenyans are famous for claiming they are the highest on earth, and I think they are in many places, we have to deal with how many highest on earth we have before us, and that's an issue. But I think if you raise your profile in a certain way, then some of that can be dealt with. I can give you some tips about being an analyst. People will see your work faster. Yeah. But yeah, we can do some connect with ICT because that's where that is domiciled. John, I've forgotten your question. Yeah, no. John Kirudi? Yeah. Your comments are absolutely welcome. I think that is fine.
Exactly. And just to add on, because now you called me by name, you forgot that one.
Yeah.
Will you be able to do this in other counties as well, not just in London? Will you be able to maybe go into the Midlands? Because some of us had to travel to come to this one. How will you transfer these forums to other places other than London?
James here has to figure out.
Yeah.
But let me say this: the one thing I have done in the 12 months I've been here is visit this country, right from Aberdeen, Dundee, Glasgow, Gleneagles, Liverpool, Manchester, Nottingham, Leeds, Leicester, Edinburgh, Southampton, Kent. I have been to this country. What we need to discuss is how to organize business groups in these places so we can have what is a useful discussion beyond enjoying nyama choma, which I enjoy sometimes. Yeah. If we do that, then I think we would nail that. And maybe my visits would, to people like yourselves, be a little more meaningful than they are at present.
Thank you.
Yeah. We can take the last round of questions, I think.
Thank you, Excellency. I know you told us the job description of your attaché here, but I'm not too sure about yours, because I'm almost certain that one of your key role is to ensure that Kenya is sold to people out here. The other one is also to ensure the welfare of Kenyans is up there, and specifically the people in the diaspora. So the challenges we face as businessmen would be key to you, especially people in this country. So our welfare is critical to you. Nevertheless, we face so many challenges in Kenya, and every time I go to that country, I call home every time. I've been going up and down for the last 5 years, trying everything. That's why I would call myself a general practitioner now in business. I have been faced with so many challenges, I feel vulnerable. So I feel that the diaspora is more vulnerable than our colleagues in Kenya because they are already resilient while they are there. I want to ask you, as your responsibility to us as the diaspora, do you think you would push your government to have a policy that will protect the diaspora while in Kenya? Because when we are there, you are here. You won't help us. Do you understand? So is there a policy or in long term, a law that will protect the diaspora, specifically where you are, the London diaspora? Because every time we go there, the professionals are so unprofessional. You know, the lawyers, the accountant, everybody. And we are there for a very short time. So we come back, we haven't done anything. Now imagine other people who are investors, who are not Kenyans. Because us guys, we are able to survive there. But what about the British and other people who go there? They can't survive that. So please address that. And please let us know if there is a feedback, because we've been involved in this talking shop for a long time, 20 years since we came to this country. We want to know if there is a structured way you will let us know on a feedback on what the issues we've raised here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, we have this hot issue of the BBI, and we would wish to see how, because we know it has a lot of effect on our fellows back home and how we do here and how we do business for some of us who do business in Kenya. Is there a way that you can make us get the space, the time, the place in a way that we can participate fully so that we can deal with that matter, so that we can see the kind of changes that we need to see in Kenya happening now and not in the future?
Thank you, Your Excellency, and my fellow brothers, Kenyans.
I just came late. In fact, I am always late anyway. My friend was speaking here about diaspora being helped by the government of Kenya or the ambassador. I think here we are not right on that issue. We need to help ourselves out. The Kenyan government, including the ambassador and all the ministers, they only need us. They only come to us and call us together when they need us, when they need something from us. We are paying 200 billion into the economy of the country. We don't have representation. We don't vote. Nobody cares about the diaspora. Nobody has consulted the diaspora on this BBI issue. We are 3 million diaspora all over the world, from South Africa to Middle East to America here. We need to organize ourselves. We don't have to wait for the government. That is what I want to tell you all, and be prepared for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think last questions, because His Excellency has said we need to be finishing. I have my question too. I've worked hard.
Please.
Hello. Thank you very much, Balozi. Hello, everybody. Okay, my name is Lydia Olette. I'm actually an entrepreneur, but I only talk about one thing that have really touched my heart, regards to welfare again, but in a different way. There's a lot of Kenyans, this has nothing to do with business, but there's a lot of Kenyans that are dying in the UK. And I know it's so much of their responsibility to know how they'll be deported back, or they'll be repatriated back home. But right now, I'm in 3 forums right now that there are 3 Kenyans who have died, and there's no way of taking them back home. So people have asked, can you ask the embassy if they can help? I know you can't help financially, but what I'm saying is we need a solution, a system somewhere that if a Kenyan dies and there's no way how to take them home because probably they don't have money or they didn't have insurance, how we can help them to deport their body back home. These are Kenyans who have worked really hard in the UK. Probably they didn't have advice on how to get insurance for themselves or how to save money that if they die, they can be taken home. But these are Kenyans, so we cannot leave them in the hands of the British, or we cannot leave them in the hands of being buried with so many people, or their body rotting, like one of them who died in East London, a Samburu guy. He was found, his head was in the sink. So of course his body has really, and it's 8 weeks since he died, and there's no way to take him home. I work for insurance companies, so I have some clients in here, I've insured them, but I think we need to get a system somehow to help these Kenyans go home. At the end of the day, they are still our Kenyans, so they need help. So welfare, again, in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know whether His Excellency has more time. Do you want to take 2 more questions?
Yeah, please. You're already here, so why not?
You've already spoken, sorry. Some people have been waiting.
Good evening, Your Excellency. My name is Hezekiah Owili. I'm a quantity surveyor by profession. My question is, I've got a comment and a question. Let me start with the comment. The comment revolves around standards, which I think the young lady here talked about, around construction. And I think you also touched on it when you said that some of our local contractors build roads which are washed away by the following rainfall. Now, I think the problem in Kenya is we don't have building standards. Because if that road, whether it's Maram Road or what, is built to a certain standard that the government has set, and every contractor is expected to work with that standard, those things will not be working, would not be happening the way they are happening now. Secondly, it's about, I would like to talk about the millennials. Kenya has got skills gaps in various sectors. And in this room, I believe there are parents here who have got millennials here who have done excellent stuff. What is the embassy doing to map them out so that you have got a database to be able to hoover them back into the country at a later stage? the gray foxes like us, our time is gone. But the millennials are here that you will need in the next 20, 30, 40 years. What are you putting in place to be able to identify them and ensure that they are taken back?
Thank you very much. That touches my heart. I love working with young people, the millennials. You have picked your hand up so much, it better be very good.
Well, Your Excellency, you mentioned that you had a call with the event that is happening in Madrid. And one of the conversations that was had there is about climate. The world that we are living in today, certainly in Africa, there is a lot of deforestation, and we have encroached so much on our biodiversity that we have lost a lot of our forests. Kenya also signed up to the AFR 100 when it was launched. And we're also part of the Queen's Canopy, which was launched in 2015. And I'm a board of trustee for International Tree Foundation, which is a body that was set up in Kenya back in 1920, and it was called Watu wa Miti. We have tried on a number of occasions to venture out in Kenya, and we have the 20 million trees program that we are trying to rehabilitate a lot of the deforested areas in Kenya. But there is always the challenge of getting through to government in order to be able to get through and do some of these programs. I wonder whether there is an opportunity to deal with the High Commission, because you mentioned that we can work with charities in order to be able to bring change to the communities back home. I wonder whether there is an opportunity to deal with government from here, signposted, in order to be able to bring some of these forestations and bringing back the biodiversity back in Kenya and indeed the whole of Africa for our people.
Yes. Actually, mine is not a question. It's for you now to listen. I have something I want to say. I heard his role is to market Kenya. And I can tell you these are very good ambassadors that market Kenya. Whenever I speak to any person, I tell them about going to Kenya. But there is one instance that kind of shocked me. I was talking to this British guy, and he was planning to go for holiday. And I started marketing Kenya. The reason why he did not pick Kenya in particular, despite having very good wildlife, he said he has been advised our roads are dangerous and you can die of road accident. Now, out of the policy of marketing Kenya, can the issue of road accident be central, to that policy? Because the moment what is reported, people start fearing. We have added, apart from now Al-Shabaab, our roads are becoming a threat to our tourism. The other thing that I would want to mention, I have heard about my friend. He is the Attache, and there are 2 people in that desk to serve 140 Kenyans who are here. The other one is the ministry in Nairobi, of Foreign Affairs. There is a desk, and I think they need even to call it a department, because a group, a constituency that is bringing in 280 billion, more than coffee, tourism, and the rest, they don't need a desk. In fact, this is where you might advise the president, because obviously we cannot get there. We need a ministry of diaspora with every relevant department. That is the only way to show these people who are sending remittance and investors who are Kenyans that now the government is taking us serious. Because the event that has happened about Mwendwa Mwinzi, the lady from US, it has left a sour taste to the people who should be marketing the country, because now they are feeling as if they are half Kenyans. Martin Luther King once said, no taxation without representation. We are being pushed backwards, step by step. If you can tell our president, His Excellency, let him show seriousness about engaging with the diaspora by having even a ministry of diaspora. Other nations, I work in healthcare. In this country, Philippines, their minister for diaspora has ever come here and negotiated for as low skills as carers to come here and work. We have nurses, probably in surplus. We are headed out of Brexit. Right now, as I'm standing here, my business, I am trying to recruit for care homes, 50 nurses, and I cannot get. There is a shortage of 50,000 nurses. Next time the president comes, can he even negotiate? Maybe Kenya can bring 6,000 nurses, a bilateral engagement with the government, so that we bring more diaspora here, so that the remittances can fatten, and also we actually need a ministry of diaspora. This business about desk, and my friend, he is overworked. That one, ninaona hapo kuna, there's a problem. That is an observation. You listen, I'm sure next time you'll be able to talk to our president, because those are key issues. Yeah? Thank you very much.
Clearly, I have listened. But maybe I am in a position to tell you some of the work that is happening already. Our principal secretary for health is in this country as of now. She spent the last 3 days here. She's going to Manchester tomorrow. Guess what she's talking about? She's talking about these gaps and about how we fill them. So we take this job seriously, my friend. And we are trying to deliver the things that we know that interest people in this market. When we asked the principal secretary for housing to come in July, it was pretty much for the same reason, that people were looking for investment into housing, but they hadn't passed the center in the world that has the most money for investment. So we got them here. Should he have a whole ministry to the diaspora? That I'll ask him and feed back to you. The question of the generational issues, it's a big deal. And the question about the skills that are available to us. Yeah. Many of you from the baby booming age have kind of made life very difficult for the millennials, and because they actually, people like us, let me say, from the baby booming age, don't try to understand the issues with the millennials and where they are in time and space and the type of jobs that they aspire to. Because we aspire for them things that we aspired for ourselves 40 years ago. Their life is different. We have to approach their life as different. We have to think about what their jobs of tomorrow are going to be like. So we are not asking them to go to school and study for the jobs we wanted to study for. Those jobs existed when we went to school. Those jobs won't exist when they get the marketplace, because the world is changing. That is part of the preparation you've got to ensure happens, so that when their time comes to step into the marketplace, their job hasn't just been taken up by a robot. At the weekend, I was with family, and one of the family members told me they had just gone back to school to study pension systems. They are basic accountants at this point. And the reason they had gone to study pension systems is because people will still need advice on pensions, while a robot can sort out your numbers. These are things that we have to prepare for. And it's really not just a question of where is government looking. It's a question of how are you preparing your young people to be ready for the marketplace of tomorrow. because it won't be the same marketplace as it is today. On BBI, I will pass your message. Two things to note. One is that the BBI recommends that the only jobs that cannot be available to diaspora are armed forces and the commander-in-chief. Everything else is fair game. And the reason for that is that if you go to war with shared loyalty, then you have a split loyalty. You might not make the right decisions at the right time. But any other job, including a representational job such as mine, should be available to anyone who is qualified to do it. I think there's a one page that refers to specific diaspora issues, and that is the one that deals with about exclusion. I think that because you raised the case of Madam Mwinzi, the courts have, I think, pronounced themselves in a way already, and it's now just the next stage. The courts ruled that these jobs are public jobs. It's not a state officer. A state officer is an elective office. So if you needed to get an elective office, you'd have to follow the rules. However, I think lots of things are going to move around in the period that the BBI has stipulated they should. So I would expect this as one of the key things that will be resolved within the BBI. Will you have the opportunity to participate? Hopefully, we have to feedback that you would like to engage, and then we feed back to you about how that will go. What I have seen from Nairobi is that they've been quite responsive to issues of public participation, and whereas I would not like to promise, I think it is possible. The one thing I had forgotten about the generational thing is about some of the work we were doing earlier in the year with Huduma number, for instance, because that gets your kids into the system. It says how many are where, in what locations. So if we are looking to tap into the market, that is the one thing that can help because it's a Kenyan database that's available to everyone. So whereas that's what they're doing to make sure we know who is where, the other task is to make sure that they have the right skills when the time comes. Welfare, or LET, this is an ongoing concern about which we continue to engage. First, about whether there is a possibility budgets can be found at some point. And secondly, how we might help coordinate more effectively. At the moment, we engage on a personal basis. We make contributions like everyone else does, and feel free to ask. But I think you want a greater coordination in a way that ensures the amount of money coming through is probably higher than it does. And I think that we will continue to engage with that.
Thank you very much. I think the forum can go on and on and on because a lot of us have got questions to ask, things to say. And more importantly is to say that, you know, the media is still here, you're here, we are networking. If you've got anything that you really, really needed to say, make sure that you talk it over later on. You can continue with the networking so as at least we all feel we've engaged. For me, what I would like to say is, as diaspora, most of the time what we are not doing, we're not engaging with the right platform. I remember when it comes to elections, a lot of us are going online and talking, but most of the people we are arguing with are probably house girls in the house. We're not using the right platform to actually communicate with Kenyans, with leaders, and I think we really need to organize ourselves in such a way that we can actually get our voice heard. A lot of the time, here we are sitting here, we've done a beautiful, beautiful forum, but what is the next step? I would like Mr. Kiiru to maybe tell us there's an opportunity going on right now, I think for Kenya Coffee. Maybe that's something you could talk about.
Thank you, Janet, and maybe out of this forum, I think we will need to think about some of the next steps that we need to take from this forum. I've heard a lot from discussions this evening that we need to create a channel of communication. Now, the challenge I'll have is it is very difficult for the office to communicate with individuals. And I think one of the challenges that we have as a diaspora is to have an organized group that can be effective in terms of sharing information and in terms of representing the interests of the diaspora. So I don't know how maybe this forum can create a mechanism whereby we can have some follow-up ideas on how we can create a very effective and a very strong group that can represent the interests of Kenyans doing business in the UK. Now, that will make it very easy so that when the High Commissioner is visiting other parts of the UK, we can have different chapters and we can have a direct engagement with different chapters to address some of the issues that you have raised. And that will also be able to make it possible for us to channel information on some of the information coming out from Nairobi, issues of inspection, conformity issues that are coming. It will be easy for us to share that information. And I think also in terms of opportunities, I think Mr. Kiiru there talked about opportunities for Brexit. I must say that we do get a lot of opportunities for Kenyans here. And I'll give you a very good example. We do have a good number of UK institutions that have a lot of financial resources earmarked for different projects in Kenya. With this in mind, I have UK Export Finance. They have over £1 billion UK pounds, which they have earmarked for different projects in Kenya. Part of the requirements is that they need a local content. They need a UK-based company to access these resources for projects, different projects in Kenya. We also have CDC with over £4 billion for different projects. They only need people in business to approach them and get this business. Now, we also have Kenyan companies which are looking for Kenyans living in the UK to market their products. Now, for example, we have the Kenya Coffee Exporters Cooperative. They do get coffee from the small-scale farmers, and they do the processing, and they do the packaging, and they export to different marketing. Now, they are looking for anybody who can be able to export and market their coffee in this market. So if anybody is interested, or if we get this information, I'll be more than happy if there's an organized structure and system where we can share this information, because opportunities are there. The question is, we are not able to share, we don't have a mechanism of sharing that information with you guys, and it would be good if we have that kind of a system. So perhaps, maybe as the High Commissioner concludes, maybe these are some of the issues that we need to think about. But as I said, feel free to get in touch with me. I have this inquiry that is pending, and I'll be happy to discuss with anybody interested in marketing coffee in the UK.
I think we'll leave it to the Kenya High Commissioner to give the closing statement.
Thank you. Not a statement as such. It's just to thank you for making the time, for engaging very robustly, for being very, very open, which is what I would expect if I am going to be of any use to you in the period that I am here. I think James has mentioned one way we can do this. So if we have an organized way to engage, I think that will work well. If you have info that we need to upload, I think please take James's email so that we can have that. Some of the stuff we've had, but I think you guys need the bilat so that we can deal with that. Right there, you can take my details or DM me so I can take up your matter. Lady, I don't want you to be humiliated again. So, Lucy, yes, Lucy, I don't want you to be humiliated, so take my number, you can call me directly. And everyone else, I am available to you, and my team is available to you. And I think that in terms of some things, we are not there yet. But overall, we are not where we were a year ago. And a year from now, we will be farther from where we are right now in terms of our engagement. Thank you very much. Good night.